if a MSME gets money within 45 days as per the law, and if that genuinely happens, their ability to grow and their ability to expand and their working capital cycles, etc., can drastically improve.
Money is love in the business world.
Generally, it's very difficult for them to segregate their personal versus the business.
MSME is a tag that is given by the banker. धंधे वाला जो है वो बोलता है मैं धंधा करना चाहता हूँ, मैं पैसे कमाना चाहता हूँ.
What may work for a medium may not necessarily work for a small.
Hi everyone, you're with Business Insider. This is Sri Rama here. You can keep telling your spouse you love them, but at some point they're going to say, show me the love. Similarly, everybody keeps saying they love MSMEs, the micro, small and medium businesses, and everybody wants them to succeed. Every country, every small business. But no one really shows them the love, the money. Money is love in the business world. So over the next half an hour or so, we'll tell you what MSMEs can do. What does it take for them? What does it take small businesses to see some love? Nice, crispy love that looks like some currency. Think of the next hour, next half an hour or so as a dating guide for MSMEs. Sunil Daga from Kotak Mahindra Bank will tell you how to woo the banker. How good is your wingman, aka consultant? You will know when you hear the answers from Bhavna Doshi, former partner with KPMG, who has now set up her own firm. Whenever you venture out to do something ambitious, whether it is running a business or chasing love, always ask someone who has done that before you and done that successfully. And that's why we have Gulshan Bakhtiani, the founder of the pharmacy chain Wellness Forever. He went from a revenue of about 8 crores a little over a decade ago to 1,000 crore rupee company without the MSME tag. So what is his magic and what is it that we can learn from him? And I would like to say that a lawyer is your best friend who's got your back when you're down and out. But who am I kidding? We have Anupam Prasad, former partner at Indus Law, who's running his own firm now in Mumbai. He's really the guy who will laugh at you, take all your money, but make sure you recover from the jhatka, whether it is in love or in business. So over the next half an hour, we're not going to talk about how much we need MSMEs to win, but how do we get them to win? We'll talk about specific problems and address specific issues with specific solutions. And that's why we've got this all-star panel today. So once again, let's welcome our guests on the MSME Exchange powered by Kotak Mahindra Bank this time around. And so I will come to Sunil first. Sunil, from a banker's point of view, let's start with the simplest question. What are the most common mistakes that borrowers make while seeking loans, these small businesses? What will it take for them to get the loans, but they don't really sort of follow the guidelines, the rules, etc. What are the most commonly made mistakes?
Yeah, hi Shriram and hi everyone on the panel. So Shriram, there is a lot of within the MSME, there has been too much of overlap between a promoter and a firm. So I think that is where most of the MSMEs somewhere confused, where the promoter is different and the company should be different. I think there is too much overlap, which I think as we move along, people should try and segregate to both if they want to gain size, scale, etc. Interchangeably, debt and equity are used at the same breadth for MSMEs. So people only understand, all small businesses only understand that it is money, and eventually color of money is always green. But there are two components of the way today businesses are run. There is an equity portion which a promoter brings in, and then there is a debt portion which a financer would fund any particular enterprise, which either you may call it as his working capital banker, or it may be his term loan banker, etc. So I think first that distinction has to happen for every entity, and there has to be an appropriate gearing which has to be there depending on what kind of business someone is running, whether he's into services or he's into manufacturing or he's into a trading unit. I think that has to be very, very clearly understood by every enterprise when they are doing.
One line. You want to see that this promoter who's running the business will not put his hand into his kitty for a personal expense. You want to be sure about that.
Sure, correct. And this is we technically called this that what should be the capital structure of a particular firm. So how much it comes out of equity, how much it comes out of borrowing either from any financial institution. So
is that a problem, Ms. Doshi, that you also face when clients come to you? Do you think the lines are blurred? and in which case, to what extent is it a problem? How many, what percentage, etc. Yeah, and by the way, I just want to say to everyone, don't wait for me to ask a question. Let this be a free-flowing chat. Let this be an exchange of lessons from every field of work that you guys come and the perspectives that you bring. So if anybody wants to chip in at any point, feel free to. Yeah, Ms. Doshi, please carry on. You were saying.
So, as Sunil was mentioning, there is, particularly when there are smaller businesses, they always have these lines blurred. And it generally is very difficult for them to segregate their personal versus the business, but they must do. If they want to do it, they need to do that and have that separate entity. And whether it's a LLP, whether it's a partnership, whether it's a company, then they need to learn early on to keep the two separate. Only if the two are separate, then you are able to really build your capital, build your business.
Is that the biggest problem as far as an MSME is concerned in finding liquidity?
I would think that they face a lot of other challenges. One, of course, capital is always a big challenge. And then the question about the borrowing, how much should they borrow? Now, of course, Sunil is a better person here to answer that. But when they go to borrow money, the real question is, what do they give as security? Very often they don't have really security, and the security they have are only their personal assets. So whether they should give that personal asset as security or not becomes a very big question for them. And whether another question which very often
what is the right answer to that question?
I would say it depends. Initial period, you may need to give some of your personal assets by way of security, but try and ensure that as fast as you can, get these personal assets out and at least try to keep your residential property away. Because I know case of a person who, when he borrowed, there was nothing else. So he thought, why not give the residential house and I'm sure I will repay the bank loan. And there came a time when he was not able to repay the bank loan. Somehow the bank was acting extremely difficult. And finally, he had to he was so threatened that finally he said, okay, I'll move to a smaller house. Let me sell this off and pay at least 50% to the bank. Now that really puts the whole family into a very difficult situation. So I would suggest, as far as possible, don't give your residential property as security. Use any other assets that you have to give by way of security and try to get your personal assets freed as fast as you can.
That's a great insight. That's a great piece of advice for everyone, I guess. Sunil, you want to say something? I can see you nodding.
No, as I said earlier, I think what is the right capital structure? I think that's the most important. Then I think the second part to it is, what kind of security, someone is placing for his working capital and to his bankers, etc. But I think getting the first piece right is the most critical part.
So how do we do that? But before we come to that, let's also bring in the others, Gulshan and Anupam, who are waiting by patiently. Gulshan, you went from 2008. You started 2008 or 2009. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You started 2008 Wellness Forever, and the first year's revenue was about 8 crores. You easily kept from there you went on to be a 1,000 crore company right now. An annual turnover of 1,000 crore, but at any point in this period, you never you were never tempted by the SOPs that were given by MSMEs. What was the did you have a magic wand?
So I am completely agreeable to what has been spoken so far, simply because MSME is a tag that is given by the banker. धंधे वाला जो है वो बोलता है मैं धंधा करना चाहता हूँ, मैं पैसे कमाना चाहता हूँ. Okay, he doesn't understand even sometimes the words like debt and equity, debt equity ratio, what is good, what is not. So here is what I suggest, that the banks, when they give a loan, a person comes, he comes with very genuine intentions कि मैं पैसे बनाना चाहता हूँ. At that time, if rather than apart from evaluating his business, if the banks run a small exercise called as lender maturity program. Okay, if they show him that, yes, my dear friend, you know how to talk to the customer, you know how to buy, you know the nuances of doing sales and purchase component. But as far as the financial nuances are concerned, now that you are taking a loan, there is another world that you are getting into. It is equally important that you understand a 2-3 days course, I think, would help him, because he basically understands everything. Will definitely help him to kind of become matured and a more responsible, more informed borrower, which unfortunately many of large MSMEs are not. So that I think the onus should be on the banks to partner with the MSMEs to become more matured financial players in their own business.
You mean education should come first? We can't expect them to understand the nuances of financial reporting. It's probably, they're running a small business, especially the micro ones. Maybe the medium ones can pull off. They might have chartered accountants, etc., who can help them with that. Maybe the micro ones. But I'm not sure how feasible it is for banks to take up that responsibility. Sunil, you want to come on that?
No, I think it's a good suggestion, but obviously there has to be an ecosystem. Today, see, ecosystem operates out of a consultant. It could operate out of a chartered accountant who's advising and who's doing the bookkeeping for a particular enterprise. It also evolves from a lot of family businesses have been run in a particular, traditional way, and it is not only one generation. It could be across, few generations. So they have a way of doing things, and a lot of them are fairly successful. So, there is nothing right or wrong in that. Yeah.
So, if I can come on that, I have personally experienced that in my life. Most of the MSMEs are, businesses that come from generation to generation. They do not understand the distinction between business and their own wealth, and their legacy thoughts are carried into the next generation. That is exactly what needs to be broken. In fact, in my case, when I started my business, my CA, for some strange reason, told me that do one thing, never grow your organization beyond 40 lakhs a year. It was really very surprising for me. It was shocking. And from my mentor, it came like a gospel ashirwad. Beta, tu 40 lakh ke upar dhanda mat karna. Okay, so it was very, very surprising. And that was a historical wisdom.
Was there a reason why? Did somebody say why?
Because beyond 40 lakhs, the balance sheets are audited by a chartered accountant. And one of the problems that MSMEs have today, poor relationship to accounting, poor relationship to reporting, and poor relationship to banking, and poor relationship to loans. So you have to be a responsible borrower. Genuine intentions alone will not help. You need to be a matured borrower, and you need to have a good relationship to the loan. To come back to the example, कि किसी ने अपना घर खरीदा था, उसने दे दिया collateral, and now that he is not able to pay money, the house is going. If the bank would have not been there at the first place, he would have not bought that house. He would have, instead of buying a house, invested that in his business. The house would have never, kind of existed. You understand my point? So the house just existed because उसने अपना पैसा जो उसको धंधे में लगाना चाहिए था, उसने घर पे लगा दिया. And now he had a pseudo sense of satisfaction of owning a house. Otherwise, his balance sheet always look like 20 lakhs asset in the house, 20 lakhs borrowing in the company, net asset 0. And when that house is gone and 20 lakhs are gone to the bank, net asset still remains the same. Only an emotional burden of having sold the house is there.
No, so Gulshan, if I can just come here. Gulshan, if I can just come in. This was the example that I was giving of a situation where person already had his house.
Achha.
It was only that when he was doing his business and he was borrowing, he needed some additional security.
No, that's fine. I think yeah. So before he went into that particular point, I think the point that Gulshan was trying to make is that as a borrower, and I think we are also trying to speak to the MSMEs on the mistakes that they are making, right? So it's not enough to say that I'm a good guy, I have good intention. Your books ought to show that good intention and maturity, right? And so here, this is where I will come back to my analogy of finding love. I think anybody who's gone back to tried finding love in their life, they've been asked for money and maturity, and I think that applies here as well. So and this is a high point in this show where I've been able to tie that back to that little funky intro I wrote for this. So yeah, Anupam.
Shriram, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Actually, I wanted to take the love analogy a little further. Of course, love has to be there, especially for the sector that we're talking about.
Yeah.
MSME is considered as the backbone of the Indian economy. The numbers show it, of course.
So we are calling it the heart of India Inc. at Business Insider.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, of course, the exports show it, the GDP numbers show it, the number of people who are employed in this sector show it. So, of course, it's a sector which obviously one cannot ignore and should not do so as well. And when we talk about MSME, there are three components to it. There's a micro, there's a small, and a medium. What may work for a medium may not necessarily work for a small.
Definitely.
Or for that and for the micro bit. So I guess that distinction also needs to be brought in. And even if you look at the statistics again, more than 95% of the MSME sector are in the micro space. They employ perhaps less than 5 people. 98% employ up to 10 people. And balance, it's only about 20,000 of the number. That is, they have sort of, a decent sort of number to show.
Size and scale to show, yeah.
Yes, so that's a very small.
Now we are just a warning. We're not talking about love here. Size and scale is about the business.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, we need to wake up and smell the coffee. So that's very important as well. So being a lawyer, of course, I will limit myself to the legal aspects of things. And of course,
I wanted to come to you next on that, because the size and scale is what my first question was. Was going to be about you. To you, this is about the new definitions, right? Much has been written, said about this. What is your point of view? These new definitions, will they do the kind of justice? Is the intent going to show in the impact?
I think the requirement was always there. I mean, we have to understand and appreciate the MSMED Act of 2006. It's only after that in 2020 that the reclassification has happened, and which is of course welcome. The industry certainly welcomes it. But again, and of course, they have sort of rejigged the definition in terms of the criteria. There's a composite criteria now. Earlier it was more to do with investment and service sector. Now it's investment and the turnover. Of course, turnover is linked to the GST requirements, so that makes sense. And of course, there were certain shortcomings with the earlier criterion. But having said that, while that is there, of course, there are certain benefits given, like I believe this global tender up to 200 crores, one should reserve it for the MSMEs. Similarly, export surplus is not included in terms of the calculation. So while you have given one indication as to what is not included, perhaps extension of that would be also to give what are the other things if there are any exclusions or inclusions, so as to say. This is just from the current reclassification standpoint. Having said that, if you look at the Act, I mean, if you look at the legislation, there is protection to the MSME suppliers vis-a-vis the amounts that it owed. So wherever you speak, whatever we hear, the largest bane is they're not getting the money, their invoices are not being realized for one reason or the other. But the legislation is very clear. There is a 45-day period within which the payment needs to be made. Thereafter, there is a sort of compound interest that the legislation also provides for. But on the ground level, is that what is happening? Like, I speak to a lot of MSMEs. I'll give you an example, without taking any names. For instance, there is an invoice due, say on 1st of July. Say this is the 45th day, right? Within which the legislation prescribes for. But I get a check dated, say 30th June, for instance, but I get it on 15th August. The check, of course, reflects, I may be within the time period. But yes, the realization will happen only then. And at the same time, as a MSME, I have my costs, raw materials, labor. Labor is scarce today. Of course, a lot of people have gone back, and perhaps we will see the migration happening again. So these are the challenges which are on the ground. Now, when
I think that was an interesting example. I think I want to go to Sunil or even Bhavna, anybody who wants to chip in on that. What does this reflect? What is this 45? This check that he gets 45 days later, backdated check. What's happening here? Who's at fault? Was it the guy who wrote the check? Was it the guy who accepted it? And where can it go wrong as a banker? Sunil, maybe for you, is that a warning sign? Is that something that you encounter?
So, I think there is a regulation. I'm still not too sure on that. How is it drafted? Having said that, if you remember, I'll take you a little back, Shriram. Earlier, there used to be, and today also we do something called as hundi discounting or bill discounting. Yeah. Where actually there is a promise for, a large corporate to pay a MSME vendor, etc. on the due date, which banks finances. And the payments actually come, just on time. On the due date, the money is there. So, those protocols, those kind of products have been there for last 20-25 years. It is only that when the transaction is not financed by the bank, probably the payment don't come on time. And I think why they don't come on time, etc. I think it's something which,
No, I'm saying put this particular practice as as a symptom of a larger problem, right? The fact
yeah,
that
so correct. So you actually this actually gives a food for thought for everyone, that if a MSME gets money within 45 days as per the law, and if that genuinely happens, their ability to grow and their ability to expand and their working capital cycles, etc., can drastically improve. So I think it's a very, very valid clause, I think, which is there, but I don't know how is it enforced.
And in fact, if I may come in, so what I gather from whatever experience we have had, that's the biggest bane of the industry in terms of the invoices not being realized. It's not necessarily with respect to private sector invoices, even with respect to public sector also. If you had noticed the recent packages, that our Prime Minister Modi had sort of announced, one of this was also directing the PSUs and the government entities to ensure that the payments are made, which is certainly welcome, but we need to see how it sort of pans out at the ground level. Because I'm also aware of examples where somebody has won a contract based on some kind of, a bidding process, an auction process, and you are sort of L1, and you agree on, say, let's for the sake of discussion, at 40,000 rupees per item. And now when the issue of realization comes, you say, reduce the cost further. I mean, I have...
And this is a government company saying that.
Yes. Yeah. So there are such instances. So, and there are difficulties even from
and this is under the new announcement where you are supposed to give a certain number of orders to an MSME under the threshold. I think what is the threshold of that order level?
No, so the thresholds are with respect to the investments and the turnover now under the new.
No, not the new definition. I'm saying as a government company, if I have a tender up to a certain amount of money, I have to give it to MSMEs. Just for the sake of our viewers, what is the threshold?
That was for the global tenders up to 200 crores.
Up to 200 crores. Okay.
Yeah. So that means you cannot really open up that to foreign sort of bidders, so as to say, for any such project. So, but that's slightly different. But even in terms of, say, like how, of course, we have Sunil who will be best equipped to throw some more light on it. But again, even banks obviously look at the creditworthiness of whoever is applying for a loan, even including under the package. Because at the end of the day, there is a NPA sort of, ghost right behind them, considering where things are right now. So while there may be so many packages and so many facilities, provided for, but we need to see on the ground level to what extent they are happening. Certainly, if your creditworthiness is good, you have maintained, what the banks need to look at, you will get those loans. But we need to even sort of address those issues. What is going wrong with these entities who are not maintaining sort of their working capital cycle? Is it because the invoices are not getting paid? So, the industry itself, there's a lot of interlinkages, and it's like a domino, right? So if one is sort of misplaced, it kind of affects the entire supply chain, which is even happening today under the COVID situation, while the markets are opening up slowly but surely. But again, they maybe say one of the distribution is in the containment zone, for example. So therefore, your entire supply stops, right? So yes, the entire supply chain needs to be obviously in order to get...
I can see Gulshan painfully nodding. Oh my God. He's like, exactly what happened with me. Gulshan? Please. Yeah, share it. It's okay. Let's consider this as a, as some version of Alcoholics Anonymous. Tell me what happened. Who didn't give you money?
So, experience with the banks have been like, as one of the earlier participant was saying, that you have to offer everything that you have, and then the MSME is just wondering whether the asset has to come first or the loan has to come first. If I had that asset, I would have rather sold those assets and funded myself. And
did you ever sell any as your personal asset to fund your business?
I have had a more difficult experiences also. At times when I was in some way felt penalized. I would want to say that Jonah chote hai na bade, badi mushkil mein hai pade. Are you getting a point? So there were times when I was told that because you are a private limited company, you can't even borrow from your father and put it in your bank, and you can't borrow from your wife, and you can't borrow from your sister. So I was thinking, have I done a crime of becoming a private limited company? Hello? Because if there is a loan in my books, and then if my company to a director, when I was getting loan, when I was getting interest, and I was paying interest to, let's say, a friend of mine, my chartered accountant will say that this interest that you are paying to your friend will not be allowed as an expense. And and the bank said that what you have borrowed and put in your company, because it will not be considered as a quasi capital simply because you have borrowed from somewhere else. So it was a double whammy kind of a thing. And you sometimes kept on thinking, is the banking model based on the fact that charge more to a lower borrower and give it to the higher borrower, which means to say that make things so difficult.
I think we have to give Sunil an opportunity to defend against this. Sunil, there is definitely I think what Gulshan is saying is MSMEs are not really given cheap loans. Is that the charge, Gulshan? Right? It comes at a huge cost.
Absolutely.
But I think here we need to differentiate between the performance of a private sector bank versus a public sector bank. Sunil, over to you to defend against this. I think we are debate zone.
I think Shriram, Shriram, I think there is a lot of misnomer at times, or probably experience. See, today, whatever said and done, private sector banks have about 35-40% market share in this space, and majority of it is still with public sector banks, and rightly so, because they have been running this business for a long time, and they started. And you will find a lot of our own customers, when they moved to us, they said, I was with XYZ public sector bank for last 40 years, 50 years, etc. And so they have seen a way of dealing with a particular banker in terms of the way the documentation happens, the appraisal process happens, etc., etc. We have seen in our space, at least with our set of customers and the way we work with our customers, if we find the business models appropriate, as I told you, the capital structure appropriate, etc. I think today I can very proudly tell you that any MSME gets all kind of products what a large company would today get from at least our bank, and more so. I can still, say most of the private sector bank probably, but definitely from us. Just to give you an example, when about 5-7 years back, import transaction funding used to be done through buyer's credit, and those products are only available to medium or large companies. Today, that particular transaction for $100,000 also is available to probably a small enterprise. So I think similarly for export finance, customers have option to draw money either in foreign currency or Indian rupee. I don't think those facilities were available 7, 8, 10 years back. With the change in banking, the way banking has evolved, I think it has got available. As I and to some extent I agree with Mr. Bhaktiani's point that the journeys have been tough because of the main fact that today risk capital is not available in the system. So as I'm again repeating that point because banks don't provide risk capital. It is, I think that's a misnomer. Banks can fund you for your expansions and for your working capital, but the risk capital has to come out of either venture capital funds or could be angel investors, or it has to, I think that ecosystem is something which we as a country probably don't have to a great extent. And thus,
I'm just saying, how are you differentiating between growth capital and risk capital?
So the way I look at it is that, there is a MSME who wants to raise equity. Actually, he requires about say a 2 crore equity. He would confuse it with a debt, and he says, I need 2 crore debt.
No, so I'm saying, I take your point. What I'm saying, as a banker, what are you? So I understand that capital that he needs to expand his business, where there is a certain amount of risk involved, that should come from a equity investor.
So, for example, a typical banker would say that you get, So typically, that's how the markets are not evolved, and probably I think that is a journey which I think we collectively all of us have to do and build a market around it. Government has launched a couple of schemes through SIDBI, etc. I don't know how the whole process works and how seamless it is, but there was a fund of 10,000 crore which was created, and things like that. So, but I still feel that there is a lot of scope on probably that. And Mr. Bhaktiani, he himself would have grown his business. He would know about how easy or difficult it is to get a risk capital in terms of.
Sure.
So Sunil, I'm just saying that you are willing to give loans, as in you. When I say, I'm not saying Kotak Mahindra Bank or you as a person, saying private banks are willing to give loans for sort of growth and expansion projects, but not for, say, acquisition or something like that? What is defined as risk and what is not?
So the way I'm putting it is that as I told you, Shriram, that a business requires a particular promoter's money in the business,
Okay.
and there is a bank borrowing in the business.
Mhm.
That today the problem which the system has is that because the lines are so blurred, so a lot of promoters in MSME combine it and say, "Ki, I need money." That's it. Whether
Yeah.
what is promoter money and what is the bank money is not segregated
So
very
you want to
clearly.
see some of
So
their skin in the game before you
their
give the money.
skin in the game, and for them also to expand, for them they should have avenues to raise equity.
Yeah.
So I think that is the system which is missing today.
So I think that's an interesting point. That's a third important takeaway that I have noted down from this conversation. I want to go back to a point that Sunil raised earlier, and I know Anupam has some stories to narrate on that front as well, which is the bill discounting. Anupam, I know you told me you want to talk about the bill discounting bidding platforms that have come about, and I want to. I mean, I don't want to restrict this conversation to only the mistakes of the past or the myths of the past or the what has gone past us. Today we have a new definition for MSMEs. We have new enabling atmosphere, and we hope that it works, and we want to make it work. That's why we've all come together, and we probably will come again together. So Anupam, on that bill discounting and bidding systems where banks can come and therefore give some where SMEs can sort of put their bills up and banks can bid and they get the money and the banks get the bills that they can encash later.
Right.
So yeah.
So I think just to take a step back in terms of what Mr. Daga also mentioned, I think there are a lot of avenues available. I think a lot of the MSME players, they need to get to know also. There perhaps needs to be some kind of knowledge sharing, or they need to educate themselves on the opportunities that is available. Similarly, like a few years back, RBI also come up with something called the TREDS, which is a trade receivables discounting system.
I hate jargons, Anupam.
Yeah. So essentially, it has allowed three players to operate in this. And it's essentially the factoring bit that we generally understand, that if I'm a seller, I have an invoice against a buyer. Once the buyer accepts it, then obviously we get a financing.
How effective has it been?
I believe it has not. Out of the three players, I think only there is one which is sort of active right now. And what I understand is the downside, why that has not happened. Of course, you need to sort of make an application towards it. You need to be registered with the Central Registry of Securitization and Asset Reconstruction and Security Interest of India. So the registration charges is about 750 rupees. While it may seem nominal, but somebody at a micro sort of SME player may think, why do I need to unnecessarily sort of get into that space? So I think one needs to look at these aspects also, and these are one of the sort of teething issues that has been identified.
Do you think Sunil or Gulshan or anybody, Ms. Doshi, anybody can chip in this on this? In terms of how to improve this. Sunil, as a bank, what is your POV on these bill discounting bids?
Yes,
I have a strong view on that, simply because lack of scalability purely comes because of the lot of money stuck into accounts receivable. Banks are also willing to support to an extent of 60, 90 days and not beyond that. The point that Mr. Anupam was making, if that is implemented correctly, like government creates, rather than creating three agencies, if they create a central body where an MSME can submit his bill to a particular GST number, and the moment the bill is accepted, it then becomes that body's responsibility to recover the money either on time or with interest. Today an MSME is such a small entity. Let's say I am supplying to a corporate hospital, then it becomes an unequal negotiation. I am unable to tell them, if I get my money also after maybe 90 days also, I folded hands, receive that money, go home. Far from even being able to tell them that I need the interest. So this maybe the three agencies can be a version one of the entire game plan. But if it is more strictly implemented, purely from viewpoint of custodianship of invoices and custodianship of receivables, and thereby custodianship of the interest that is recovered, I think that will be a full game plan and a much more effective game
for
plan.
those of our viewers who are a little confused right now, I want to clarify this. This is a new mechanism that was brought in by RBI, whereas if you have invoice that you are about to get money from, but not today, maybe in 60 days, 90 days from now, there are platforms where you can take that bill, you can give it to them, they will collect the money on your behalf, and they will give you a certain portion of the dues for you to run the business. It will keep your, business running. However, the contention that our guests here are making that it's not working as effectively as possible. Bhavna, do you want to weigh in on this? How aware are MSMEs of these new formats, new platforms that are available to them?
Yeah, I guess it's not so.
And if there is anything new that you want to highlight, feel free to.
Yeah, no, so I think it's not publicized enough, one. And these small businesses also need little hand-holding, because when they have to go to a platform, they have to offer that I have this receivable which is coming after 90 days. So sort of, how do I go about it? How do I have that, create that bill which I can go and discount? It's certainly something which is required, particularly for the smaller businesses. And especially what I understand is whenever there is something due from government, that's the biggest challenge they have. Because one, they have a challenge of bill passing. After bill is passed, there is always some deduction for whatever damages or delay, etc., etc. And thereafter, then to recover that money. So that is where, if there is such a type of platform, at least government is also aware at a point of time that this is something which is due from A PSU or B PSU, and where there are delays happening.
I think if you and also sort of being available on a common platform, Sunil, will also help make it more transparent for, especially for dues that are, that have to come from PSUs, right?
Yeah, if I can just step in for a second, I think in order to make TReDS sort of successful, maybe the government could have the PSUs by way of, sort of a compulsory function to, get themselves involved in that. So that is one way to lead by examples. And just for the sake of the viewers, the one TReDS platform which is active is called Receivables Exchange of India, which is a joint venture between National Stock Exchange and SIDBI. Sorry, please continue.
Okay. Okay. Anupam wanted to throw in a little trivia here. That's thanks to you, Anupam. I think that's a good starting point. I think we're very close to the end of this show right now. We've spent about 40 minutes talking about a lot of issues. We've touched upon, I think, some important bits. But what we will do in the days to come is delve deeper into a lot of. This was just a teaser for our viewers right now to say that. Just the sheer expanse of problems and challenges and just lack of information, right? Just lack of expression, a simple expression of, do I want to say TReDS or do I want to say bill discounting and, those kind of things. Just making it accessible to the MSMEs. And I think that is the goal that Business Insider has. And we promise to bring to you, very useful information in the days to come. But today, if I actually want to, I have a little bit more time. If anybody wants to make a closing comment, Sunil, Gulshan.
So one small advice for MSMEs, they should also internally decide the time to which they will remain in that bracket. So if you are a micro enterprise for 5 years and you continue to be that for perpetuity, then basically there is something wrong. So even MSMEs now should take a target internally that in one particular bracket from micro to small and small to medium, I should give myself a time. And even government should also propose. Otherwise, we'll have 1 million MSMEs and only 5 corporates.
This is actually, yeah, Sunil, that's an interesting point. So if I were, let us say, if I remain in the same class 9 for 5 years, I'm definitely less eligible for love. So, what do you think, Sunil?
No, I think on a serious note, Shriram, it's not about only India MSME. I think globally MSMEs are extremely large and they contribute to almost 50-60% of employment, etc. It's not only India, and I think this is definitely any country. If you go through any kind of definition, some have definition around number of people they employ, some have definition on total assets, some have turnover, etc. But the crux of the matter, point which I want to make is that this is definitely the most important segment for any economy to thrive. And thus, the initiative which you guys have taken is, definitely can really go a long way.
Yes, thank you so much, Sunil. But yeah, so I think Gulshan's point of, you run a business not to be where you are forever. I think a big part of an entrepreneurship is aspiration. I think if you don't have that, if without aspiration, your products remain mediocre, your businesses remain mediocre, and of course, your entity as your personality remains mediocre. So Gulshan is someone who sort of, is pushing you to say that, forget the SOPs, forget the government largesse, and do business like you would be a daredevil. It's obviously easier said than done for a lot of people, but whoever can afford to dream, do dream. And we are here to help you and empower you. And I want to run through some of the other takeaways that we are taking away at the end of this episode. Number one is separate your business expenses from your personal expenses. Your business kitty is not meant to sort of, pay off somebody for the emergency, etc. That discipline should show. And when it shows in your books, then the bankers take a very sanguine view. They will give you the loans. It's more likely that you will get a loan if you are able to show that your business is a separate entity from your personal self, no matter what your structure of the organization, whether you are a private limited company, proprietorship, partnership, whatever. Takeaway 2 today is avoid giving personal assets as security against loans, especially things like the home that you live in. I think that's an important piece of advice. So essentially, try to create new assets as opposed to just surviving on, there is a, one of my teachers used to say this, you don't sell off one brick at a time just to sort of get past. Instead, you should be building walls, not taking bricks off it. So create assets and try to, and show intent, and that gives you a leg up over others when it comes to getting the kind of business as well as loans and, all kinds of support. And number 3, what Sunil said, that bank will give you money for, growth projects. I mean, banks are keen to give as long as they see that you have a skin in the game. There's a certain amount of money that's coming in from you. Once they see that, they are able to trust you more. And I think those are some broad cornerstones of, I think the change starts there. And then we can slowly, as we take this campaign forward, we would be happy to, address specific queries. And I know today Bhavna, Anupam, Sunil, Gulshan, they had each one of them had at least 5 other topics that we have discussed that they wanted to make a point about. But unfortunately, time does run past faster than we can imagine. But we will bring them back and we will keep discussing these. We will take up individuals. For example, bankruptcies, right? Bankruptcy code is here. How many MSMEs are able to take the benefit of it? And what is it that stands in between them and that kind of a platform? Similarly, other exemplary journeys of businessmen who have actually, come out of that MSME zone and made a business of themselves. Some aspiring stories, some useful advice, and some fun conversations. That's what we promise you here in Business Insider. This is Sriram Iyer signing off.